A lot of artists, when I first meet them, they're like locked up in, my stuff doesn't look like the good stuff I see, so I'm not very good at this. They've got it backwards. You have to get in touch with why you want to do this in the beginning, not compare it to somebody else. Like, you didn't get into this to draw like that guy or that person or that woman. You know, you got into this because you like doing it.
Mm-hmm.
What happened? What's changed him like that? I don't know. Something he saw, I guess.
Welcome back to the Pencil Kings podcast. Today we've got Will Terrell. He's teaching, he's been helping a lot of artists, not just online, but locally. He's extremely talented. One of the things that he tackles, conquering the emotional roadblocks as an artist, recognize and then break those down so that you continue to progress.
What is it? I'm sorry to bother you. Just a few questions.
Welcome to the call, Will.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Tell us just a little bit about how you got started as an artist. Have you always been pen in hand, or?
I mean, yes, I always drew even as a kid, but I didn't really have aspirations to be an artist for a living. Originally, I wanted to write comic books, but I could never find artists to like finish books. So I started drawing them myself. That's about how I became an artist. So it's been years and years of learning and developing that skill. I started off as an amateur, basically. I mean, we all...
How old were you when you realized that it was very difficult to find an artist to finish your book and that you were just going to have to take the bull by the horns and do it yourself?
It was 19, 20. I was after high school. I had some basic drawing skills, but I definitely wasn't the artist that people look to like, oh, that guy's going to be successful.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Yeah, I was not that guy at all.
Was it easy for you to hop into that because you had spent so much time, I guess, reading comic books and being exposed to the artwork that it came naturally, or did you really have to put your head down and work hard?
Yes, it did come naturally, but I didn't realize how bad I was until I started like actually printing comic books and going to conventions and showing them to publishers and other artists. And then they were like, no, you're actually really bad at this. You're not, you should consider another career. Cause if you keep going down this road, you're going to be in for like decades of frustration. And, but I was really stubborn and they were right. So it was a lot of making comic books and portfolios and going to shows and getting feedback from other professionals and seeing what I needed to work on. And they'd give me learn anatomy, go learn perspective, go learn backgrounds, you know, all the advice that you usually get when you're starting out. Like I grew up in a small town and there weren't a lot of resources for that type of thing, like for doing figurative art or concept design or comic books even. As I developed those skills over the years, that's what made me want to teach other people how to use those skills because it was so hard finding those resources growing up that I wanted to give it back to the community.
Before we hopped on this call, you were talking about helping artists doing local sketch groups. And I feel like online, the quality bar has been set so high or people get exposed to so much high quality artwork that it's like, oh, I can't even go to a local sketch group. But I don't think that's true.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'd heard rumors about other sketch groups when I first started, like the comic jams that were started by Sal Good Sam in Montreal and the sketch club that was started by Marcelo Vignali and Steve Silver in LA. And I'd heard about drink and draws and that kind of thing. And so I'd seen like there was something out there. And so I tried starting groups like that from day one. Like we'd go meet up at a bar and everybody would get drunk and draw comics. But that's not a good way to learn. You're just, it's a good way to socialize. You're making friends. And it wasn't until I lived in California and San Diego in 2005 that I actually got to be part of a sketch group and saw what it looked like to draw with other professionals. The idea of filling an entire sketchbook in a month, like, was not something that occurred to me, especially at a high level of quality. Like, I didn't realize how much work went into getting good. And it wasn't until I got to see what that looked like that I started to actually apply it to my own life. If there is a sketch group in your community, like, that's the best thing you can do is just be around it and be able to look over an artist's shoulder and see them erasing and seeing them drawing and moving on to the next page or filling up a whole page of sketches and just seeing what it looks like. What are they observing? And if that makes sense.
How did those sketch groups differ, the ones that you felt were just a higher caliber from the drink and draws? Because I think drink and draw is fairly obvious what it is, but you show up at a bar, you have a few drinks, you loosen up, you have a few laughs, you're making friends, you're not lonely anymore. But if you really want to advance, what do you think makes a great sketch group that's going to help people progress fairly quickly?
Well, first I want to say that I haven't actually been to a professional drink and draw, so I don't want to disparage that.
Oh, no, I think drink and draw sounds amazing to me.
Yeah.
I'm all for that.
Well, I know Cody Chamberlain, he's a comic book artist that lives in Louisiana. He runs a drink and draw out there, and he says none of their guys actually drink. They just get together. It's a social thing. Anyways, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but I think it really does help to have a professional that runs the sketch group, or at least comes on a regular basis, and a professional that doesn't have a lot of ego. Because I did the comic jams and the drink and draws for about 10 years before I started our sketch club, and those were not successful, the comic jams and the drink and draws, mostly because I had a lot of arrogance and ego. Some artists will probably recognize that, like, when you're starting out, you look at people that are more successful. Those are the people I can learn from, it makes sense. But when you are running a group and that's your attitude, it kind of comes off as arrogant. And it's like the people that aren't as good as you or that are at your level are kind of like, so I don't matter. What am I, and so the person that actually runs the group needs to have an attitude where everybody matters. Everybody that shows up has something to offer. And when I started the sketch club, my attitude had completely changed, where I was like, all right, even if you only draw stick figures, there's something that you're good at that I am not, something that you are stronger at that I can learn from. And so I started looking for that with every person that showed up. And what it did is it made everybody feel important. Like our first sketch group, we only had like 3 people. And over 6 years, it got more and more until we had our biggest group, we had almost 100 people, and it filled up the entire restaurant of people with sketchbooks, drawing, and, it was amazing. And it was like families, it was college kids, high school kids, retired school teachers, like people in their 80s. It was a huge group of people, and everybody was teaching each other, and it was a family. It was amazing. So it really evolved into something. Like, if you do decide to start your own sketch group, there's a few things that you have to keep in mind. It's not a class. You're not there to teach people lessons, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely. Everyone's on their own path. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would teach people. It's just I didn't want them to expect that they were showing up each week for me to give them a lesson plan or to give them a critique every single time they showed up, because that'll wear you out. If everybody that's at the table is like, they finish a sketch and they're like, hey, Will, look at this. Check this out. What do you think? And it's like if you're teaching an after-school program or something, the kids are like, hey, look, I drew a stick figure. And every drawing they did, they had to show you and get approval on it. And you don't have time and energy for that kind of thing if you're running a group. So I teach people, and I do this with my YouTube videos too. Like, if I see that an artist is ready for a lesson, then I will teach them where they're at. But if they come and ask me for a lesson, it's usually I have to okay, are they really ready for this? Or are they just wanting approval for the drawing?
Right.
And that's a skill set that's all on its own. It has nothing to do with being able to draw, being able to teach, and being able to manage a large group of people and host an event. That's like its own skill set. But there's a lot of benefits to it too. Like I had, I got free food everywhere we went because they were like, bringing in a ton of people. We had a comic convention with thousands of people showing up because of this group that we had to pull from. It enabled us to start our own comic convention in the area in a very small town that you wouldn't think would be successful, but it did really well. And then it led to, I'd get discounts on art supplies for everybody in the community and from the local art stores. And, it opens up a lot of doors having that kind of community.
Amazing. One last question about this. As the sort of moderator of the sketch group, I imagine with 3 people, you're just drawing alongside everybody else with your sketchbook and talking a bit. But as you get to 20 people, are you then kind of just walking around the room and chit-chatting with people? Are you drawing yourself? How does that look for you as the organizer or moderator?
So my average night would be, I would walk in and I would greet people that I'd never seen before. I mean, I would greet everybody, but I would greet the person I'd never seen before. And usually I would just sit down next to them and just make them feel comfortable. And then I would look at their sketchbooks, go through their entire body of work. I try and critique over an entire body of work because it doesn't help for me to pick apart one drawing. I like to look at what they're doing consistently so I can say, all right, here's the thing you keep doing where if you tweaked it a little, it would make your drawings better. And so I would look through their whole sketchbook, and then I would find somebody that had similar interests and drawing style to them, and I would introduce them. So the next time they came in, they already had a friend to come sketch with. Over 6 years, we had a lot of people create like lifelong friendships through that. We had 4 or 5 couples meet and get married, and I met my wife. No way. Yeah, I met my wife at the sketch club. Yeah.
Dang.
And it's all from connecting people together and seeing where their strengths are and their interests and putting them with other people that have those, it's amazing.
That's phenomenal. I want to go start a sketchbook. Like as soon as I get back to Vancouver, I want to get a little sketch club going or see what's out there. And I love the idea of helping 2 people make that connection that you're like, I know you and I know you. You 2 should meet. Yeah, I'm done. My part's done. You guys take it from here.
That's one of my favorite hobbies is like just connecting talents, connecting like personalities. And it's tricky because you have to make sure that they're ready for it because some people aren't ready to connect with other people.
Gotcha. Before we start to dive into what you're actually working on these days is the emotional roadblocks that we talked about in the intro, and how do you recognize those in people, and what's 1 or 2 of the most common roadblocks that you see that someone listening might be able to identify? It's like, oh, that's me. What can that person do?
People will tell you what their roadblocks are. They may not realize they're telling you, but they almost always tell you when they first meet. So if I'm looking at somebody's sketchbook and they're making a lot of excuses like, oh, it's not very good, or it's I could do better than that, or the worst is these are all old. What that tells me is that they don't have fun drawing. It tells me that they used to have fun drawing, but it became something different and they lost their joy. And so for that type of artist, my job is to help them find their joy again. It's not to teach them how to draw. So if you can get them drawing like a kid, and that was one thing we do at the sketch group is create games for people to play. Like a comic jam would be one person draws a panel, and then you hand it to the next person, they draw a panel, and you hand it to the next person, they draw a panel, and it finishes a whole page by the end of the night that tells a story. And if you've got 20 or 30 people starting their own comics at a sketch night, you've got 20 or 30 comics getting finished, and it's fun. You're getting people in touch with why they became an artist to begin with. A lot of artists, when I first meet them, they're like locked up in, my stuff doesn't look like the good stuff I see, so I'm not very good at this. They've got it backwards. You have to get in touch with why you want to do this in the beginning, not compare it to somebody else. Like, you didn't get into this to draw like that guy or that person or that woman. You got into this because you like doing it. Mm-hmm. If that's where you're stuck, then that's where you need to go back to. And then there are other people that are actually really talented and they draw on a regular basis, but they are kind of a similar boat where there's no joy in it anymore because they want to make a living with it. And so they keep plugging away at it, hoping to make a living with it, but then it's still like they're starting to resent it. It's not giving them what they wanted. And so they're starting to resent the thing that they love because it's not giving them what they wanted. And that's like a whole other problem, but it's still rooted in not being in touch with your joy. Like, you're doing it for the wrong reasons again. You have to like fall in love with doing the drawings that you like to do and figure out how to do those drawings in a way that clients will be interested. not doing the drawings that you think a client will be interested first.
Yeah, the last podcast, we talked to two animators, and they're just like, we like this style, and we want to do projects in this style. People seem to like it when we did the first ones, and so we just keep doing this. If we try and do what we think people might like, it's just gonna we're just gonna be this weird services shop, and we're not, that joy is not gonna be there. And I thought it was very true words.
Yeah, if you've got a portfolio full of stuff that you hate drawing, then those are the clients that are going to come. They're like, "Oh, I want that thing," and you're like, "I hate drawing that thing." Well, then don't put it in your portfolio.
Yeah,
only put in your portfolio the things that you love to draw, but that are also marketable to clients, and that way you end up getting hired by clients that want you to draw what you want to draw.
Oh yeah, and it's so weird. I think as you continue to understand yourself more and what you like to do, then you can look back in your work and figure out what that style is. I know Sycra had talked about, him rediscovering his own style recently, or discovering his own style. For me, I haven't sat down to do it, but I know when I do, it's going to be something simple and fun to draw. That I tend to be very technical. I used to love perspective and getting everything perfect, but you know what? Those drawings take you like 8-10 hours, and I would rather be able to do something that's fun and quick, and I could give it to somebody and make them smile, and that's it. That's the experience. That's all I want. Just something simple and fun.
You needed to go through that. You needed to go through the other side of it in order to appreciate knowing what you want to do now. And some people, once they realize what they actually want to be doing, they start to resent like that they went through all of that. Don't. Like, you needed to go through that. You needed to get frustrated. You needed to get burnout in order to appreciate. It's got to hurt. Like, you have to go through that old life so much until it hurts enough for you to never want it again. It's like, I got burned by touching that before, and I don't want that anymore. Sometimes you just have to go through that in order to be able to avoid it.
So what are you working on these days? What's exciting for you? Where are you at with your own work?
I'm mostly doing the YouTube. Like, I am having a lot of fun with YouTube. It's sort of, I was a professional comic book artist for years and years, and that's what I wanted to do. But it kind of, I started to get burned out on it and wasn't sure why. But then looking back on it, the thing that I've always loved doing is teaching. And now I'm able to do that with my videos. So it's sort of like with the Sketch Club. I did the Sketch Club for 6 years, and then I started getting frustrated that it felt like I was teaching the same lessons over and over and over to the new group of people that came in, because it was a new group every 6 months. So I started doing the YouTube videos to teach those lessons that people can teach themselves wherever they're at in their life, anywhere else in the world. It feels like it's what I'm meant to do, and I like that feeling.
Well, I saw on your website that you're moving to Los Angeles.
Yes. Yeah.
And so is that to help with YouTube, or is that? It's
a little of everything. Like, ready to leave Texas. I'm ready to go hang out on the beach, ready to be around other professional cartoonists, because the town that I live in, there's not a lot of options for that. I want to get work as a storyboard artist. I'm still a storyteller. I look at you doing YouTube videos as being a storyteller. Storyboarding is just another avenue for that. And I'm looking forward to that experience of being able to bounce ideas off of other people and get feedback. And it's just a little bit of everything. And then there's a lot more opportunities out there for YouTube creators, I think, too.
Have you been a storyboard artist before, Will? Or is this something new for you? Obviously, just the skill set translates to a lot of different things. But I'm really curious about people taking creative leaps and sort of like taking different paths in their career. Is it a scary path? Is it something new for you? Or
it is. It's new. I've been training to be a storyboard artist for about 3 years now. When I lived in California in 2005, I had a friend named Brian Morant, who he's one of my best friends. And we worked together at SeaWorld doing caricatures. And we both loved doing cartooning and comic books. And we made a pact back then that we were going to I was going to become a professional comic book artist, and he was going to get into animation. Both of us, within 5 years, got hired for big gigs. He got hired at Nickelodeon. I got hired for this big contract for doing a comic book series. It took him about 5 years to get the skill set he needed to get hired and the portfolio he needed to get hired at Nickelodeon. So I saw what it looked like when he went through that. Every time I go out there and visit him in the studio and meet all the other animators and storyboard artists, I don't know if you've seen a lot of storyboards like behind the scenes, but it's like watching classic like Looney Tunes cartoons where they're really, really, really funny. And then something happens when it gets translated to 3D and animation that it's not funny anymore. But the storyboards are hilarious. And those are the cartoons I want to see.
Oh, wow.
Now I'm drawing those kinds of storyboards. And I'm like, this is fun. But it took me about 3 years to develop the skill set to actually have fun doing it, which is weird. You know, I've been doing comic books forever, and I thought that it would be an easy transition from comics to storyboarding, but they're like completely different languages. It's like the difference between Spanish and Portuguese. Like they're very similar, but they're completely different, you know? So it's taken me that long to get to the point where not only could I do it competently, but I could actually make myself laugh.
And do you think that's a function of your storytelling? I think your artwork would have already been there, that I feel like you could adapt a different style fairly easily, but making that leap and you saying it taking you 3 years, it seems, almost can't believe it.
Well, I wasn't intensive on it. It's only been recently I've really dived into it. For a while, I was like, I don't think I have what it takes to do this. But I felt that way about comic books too when I first started. I felt that way about YouTube, and I felt that way about teaching. And so I've been through it enough times to know that you just have to put in a certain amount of time and then find your joy, and then you'll do well with it. It wasn't that I couldn't draw the storyboard. It was the language. It was like with comics, you like say you draw somebody throwing a baseball. So with the comic, you draw, the before or the after, but you don't draw the follow through. You don't draw, you pick one of them, either that or that with comics. But with storyboarding, you would draw like 5 shots or like blend them together. Like I had to rewire my brain to think in those terms, and then also how the camera actually works. There's a lot of rules for following the camera, and to really do well as a storyboard artist, you need to treat your camera like a person and let it react the way a personality would. So it's not just mechanical, like, all right, now I need a long shot, now I need a close up, now I need so on and so forth.
So one of my friends is big into storyboard art, and they really talk a lot about the camera and how the camera moves, and that's maybe one of, maybe even the most important part of your storyboard, because that's such an important part of the story.
Yeah, with comics, I think of the whole page as a piece of art, where storyboards, it's shot, but they all need to work together, in a sequence.
You thought it was a fair gamble. Either I'd find myself or get it out of my system.
You just said something, I think, really profound in how you've approached all of these different things. You wanted to be a comic book artist. You didn't start out like being amazing at it. You just did it. You wanted to do YouTube, and you worked at it. You wanted to do storyboarding, and you worked at it. You realized that it's just an amount of time, and that you have to find your joy. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering if you, having time to reflect back on your artistic journey and sort of climbing these different mountains, is there something that can help us who are trying to transition into something new, realize that we're on the right path? Because sometimes it's very unclear, and you're just sort of like, I don't know if this is going anywhere. Like, I've been doing it for 6 months. I've been doing it for 9 months. It's been 18 months. I don't, where am I?
For me, I had to get crystal clear about what I want my life to look like, not because of a job, but 20 or 30 years from now. Like, what kind of impact do I want to have on the world, on my family, on my kids, on my friends, and every person I come into contact with? Like, my intention is to make the world a better place. And I want to use my talents to do that. And my talents are as a storyteller. Once I got clear about that, this is what I want my life to look like, I could reverse engineer it and say, all right, so everything I need to do, I need to be a storyteller. And every time I tell a story, I need to make people's lives better and inspire them to pass that on. I had to get rid of a lot of things in my life, and I had to let go of a lot of goals that I had before, but it was finally okay. I wasn't worried about missing out on some opportunity because those are great opportunities for somebody else, but it's not going to help me get to where I want to be down the road. So once I had that, then it became easy. It's like, all right, so I'm learning to do YouTube now. Whether it works or not, I don't know. I just got to put it out there. I have to try it. And then I was completely surprised when it actually did start to work out. Like I just passed 60,000, or I'm close to passing 60,000 subscribers today, where I had 2,000 subscribers last January. Like, that's a huge leap for me. Like, I didn't expect that at all. But best of all, it's like making people's lives better. And so with the comic books, it wasn't to make other people's lives better. It was just because I wanted to be a comic book artist. And that's why it was getting to be so hard to do it. If you can do the thing that you're really good at, the thing that you're really passionate about, and the thing that people respond to, if you get those three things right, that's how you become successful. And I didn't have those three things right with doing comics. That's why it helps taking a fresh approach with doing storyboarding, so I can get those three things aligned. And then eventually I'll come back to doing comics, because I love doing comics. I just got to do it for the right reasons. Well, I always try and start with the end in mind. Where do you want to end up 20, 30 years from now? And how do you get that out of your life today and start building towards that? How do you start becoming that person today by everything you're doing now?
I'm trying to think where I will be in 20 or 30 years. Man, the singularity is coming. We're going to have jetpacks. Whatever I'm going to do, I want to have a jetpack in there somewhere.
Right.
Now, Will, where can we find you online? I know YouTube is your big avenue right now, but you've also got a website. And what's the best way to get in touch?
WillTerrell.com is my website. At Will Terrell on Twitter, and YouTube is Will Terrell 2001. I have no idea, because I have Will Terrell as a channel now. I don't know why I didn't get it 10 years ago. I was like, hey, Will Terrell's still available. What? Why did I pick 2001? Anyways.
No, it's all good. So Will Terrell 2001. But you can just search your name,
right.
WillTerrell, and you'll find everything. Mm-hmm. So thank you so much for being on this call. I think this is one of the best calls we've ever had. There's so many nuggets.
Well, thank you, Mitch.
Really powerful stuff, and a really powerful message that you can do what you want to, and being in alignment, I think, is really a great takeaway for those listening. And it might not make sense yet. You might have to think about it for a little while and what is actually aligns for you and what you want to do, because 20, 30 years is a long stretch of time to think about. But if that's difficult, maybe you can think 5 years down the road. Where would you like to be in 5 years? And
especially if you're just trying to pay bills. You're like, I can't think of alignment. I got kids to take care of.
Definitely. So thank you so much, Will, for being on the call, and we'll be back next Wednesday with another podcast.
Thank you.
You don't understand. We saw something that changed things. That's what happens to all of us. Doesn't matter if we really see it or only imagine we do. We see something that changes us.
If you'd like to find out a little bit more about what we do, why don't you head over to pencilkings.com/free, where we've put together a 30-day course that's going to teach you the ins and outs of drawing the face, along with homework and printable study guides that you can use wherever you are in the world.